This first slide talks about the flat auditor's fee we heard this morning about. And in 1999, it was very difficult to negotiate that sort of a deal. So what we decided, Miklos and I, was to provide a strong platform base and then negotiate audit fees in a bank. And this is where we were at that time. Basically, we had microprocess documentation in line of the whole bank and the whole banking group. And in fact, this is a presentation that goes back to 1999, the one you see here. And the heart was the microprocess documentation we had, and the idea of make a process-based internal auditing. And we started having idea of operational risk, which Basel committee started at that time conceptualizing. The second slide here is this way we had a common platform. Miklos was talking about redundancy. So going ahead, we avoid redundancy in data information for external auditors and supervisor and whoever was auditing the company. And here you see the type of risk we had, the type of product we had, and home office branches and retail and financial advisor, which is the network of people going and talk to and sell products to retail and to families. And here were the banking supervisor, the SEC supervision, the anti-money laundering supervision, and legal supervision. And the comment about the legal supervision is this supervision is the one that interfaces more with media. And media means who the investors are. The investors are the one who listen to media. Very simple. And this has to do with the reason why this conference is called Continuous Auditing and Reporting. Because reporting is an important piece of the concept. We started with risk self-assessment as defined in the Basel Committee, and we ended up in continuous auditing concept with data mine and all the things we've been hearing. We started at that time experimenting. But so the point today is the attestation of the system that came, the word that came with Amy knows a lot about it, but the concept came with the Basel Committee for Financial Institution, saying that the supervisor has to make an attestation giving a quantitative adjustment ratio which you need to apply to your computed risk, total amount, to set a capital buffer that you cannot use for your industry as a capital for the industry. If you're a bank, you cannot loan, you cannot make loans on the base of that part of the capital. And now if you read the papers, what they're talking about now after the subprime is that they control the leverage that each bank can have on his loan. You cannot lend more than 7 times, 8 times, 9 times your capital. So if you set apart a piece of your capital which you cannot leverage on, that means a lot of money and a lot of restraints of the type of for your particular type of business. So you start understanding why continuous auditing becomes very important at this point, because that is money. So the more the robust your system is, and the less the number you show out of a robust system, the more you can lend, the more you can make money on. I understand that in this country, even if US is one of the key participants to the Basel Committee, these concepts are not that applied. And they kind of being postponed from time to time. But the entire world is now following this track. So at that point, the idea was we had to have a continuous process documentation and process control documentation to apply a continuous auditing monitoring on. Because if you are applying the numbers to qualities which are not the one in place, the number don't mean much anymore, right? So the point was, how can I have a continuous documentation of my processes that I'm measuring with my continuous auditing application? And this concept you don't hear in this environment because it sounds too German, isn't it? But Basel Committee and Basel II require specifically that these things are in place and are functioning. And supervisor will have to give their marks on the basis of how you apply these sort of mechanisms. How this is the concept of robust, how it comes out of this. So we developed at that time even a reliability agency theory. That means that if you had a self-assessment, the reliability was low. If you had the auditor going through an audit process, assessing that the numbers were correct, the reliability was medium. If you had a continuous auditing double check of the numbers, then you could say that the reliability of the numbers is high, and therefore the capital buffer can be reduced against the same type of risk you have in the company. So the point is, you can have a defined type of risk, a quantity of risk, but according how the system which is measuring it is sound and robust, the less capital you have to set aside. And this is talking about money, which is a language that is known and heard and understood everywhere. So after that, for this part of continuous monitoring, we came out with the idea of different type of indicators. Now, we heard about an audit trail whose number can be recorded on a log. But do we have a real idea of how and where an audit trail is an audit trail, or it just is a simple control that is not the base for attestation? We should have a theory for this. We cannot just say, these are audit trails because I say they are audit trails. Because if it is for yourself, fine. But if it is for a supervisor that needs to make an assessment of it, you should have an idea how and why this is called an audit trail. And we develop a theory for that. And then we said, if you have an audit trail, then you can have an indicator on the audit trail. So you can audit the audit trail manually with an auditor, but if you have now a continuous monitoring of the numbers that go through that audit trail, then you can say that the reliability of your numbers is high and you pay less capital, right? Then you need to say that for being robust, you must trust the system, you must trust the data and the system that originates the data. But the more you do on this, the better the mark you get, the less capital you pay for the same kind of risk you have. Then when you found out that the position of an indicator is where an audit trail sits, then is the time of the metrics, analytics, and standards for this computing. And then you have to need a stable EDP, information technology environment for the computation. Once you have all this, you can start going audit fields. So if the field work is done on that environment, what you can tell is that the auditor not only looks to the past. You have a voucher, you make sure that the voucher is correct. But as long as you have a process and a risk, the auditor at that point is assessing that is not only valid for past, but as long as the risk number is correct, means that he's looking towards the future, not only backwards on the past. Right? So the auditor work, internal or external, gets a much higher value of what it has today. Because it is anticipating what's going on, which has been the request of all CEO when negotiating an audit fee. But you're here to tell me that I'm sitting on a good business. I know already. Tell me what's going to happen tomorrow. Then I'll pay for it. And this risk-based approach is talking about future, because the risk is just the budget of the mistakes and bugs that you're going to have in the future. And the more it is trustable, you can say, trusty, the more is valuable. You know what KPIs are is very known to you. According to me, what we hear today and the past experience of this continuous auditing symposium are that we talk about process owner indicator when we say the industry has to buy the idea without a specific definition at how these things can be trusted and certified. That means that we have sold these things to the business. And we call these process owner indicators. Everybody has an idea of what a process owner is, and he's the one that should pay for the computation of something that is helping his business, right? But now, let's go back to risk analytical indicators. The risk analytical indicators got to be computed not any place, but just where an audit trail is and where a predictable audit trail is. So we know the position. At that point, we can specify the metrics, go ahead with a computation in a very solid environment. And at this point, the risk analytical indicators generate the audit program. And once this is available, Vigilanza Cartolare is just what we call our supervisory authority on these things. Because if they would agree to access this sort of environment, there shouldn't be any problem. But they are too scared because they are endorsing a bank saying there are no other risks than these, and they will never do so because they risk too much. Because a supervisory authority is an authority, and being an institution cannot be wrong. So at this point, we need sort of an interface to the supervision, and who better than a ACPA firm can do the job. We go back to Herr Bremen. No, they don't call it this way. Idea of a flat fee. If you have a flat fee, then you can have sort of a joint venture with your CPA firm. And if you can get through this a better attestation mark, isn't it better for everybody? There's more money to divide. But if you do, I call it EPA, Extended to Risk Process Auditing. Yes, finished? Means that, as we said, that the auditor is facing the future, not the past only. That was the end.